What's up with Ranelagh?
He floats one up for Corcoran, just maybe showing off about every facet of his game.
If you know, you know. If you don't, now's your chance.
Lots of sideline hands go up as we're going to look at the replay here.
From their Dublin inceptions to their unraveling at the Elite Invite in Bologna, all the way to their unexpected run for glory at the EUCF Championships 2022.
All the way. So, what a score!
I mean, Ranelagh are just looking unstoppable right now.
Lose their confidence. They did not hesitate. And there you see the break rocket again.
Their season was a roller coaster.
But from my point of view, EUCF was the main goal.
That game against Clapham probably sticks in the memory the most.
Thanks for joining. I'm Stef Pazzo, and it's high time we deep dive into the ongoing history of Ranelagh.
He was dressed the part.
Be happy, but never satisfied.
So where do they even come from? The seven-headed love child of Liam Grant and Lorca Murray?
Hiya, you're watching Ireland 1, the only channel on the telly not controlled by the bleeding British. Next up, it's our #1 dating show. Kiss me, I'm Irish.
Well, no. But the beaming love, singing Irish voices, and pint-half-full optimism doesn't land them too far from that anatomically improbable potential. All the way back to their Dublin inception. Ranelagh, the ultimate club, hail from the Dublin suburb with the same name.
I love Dublin.
A suburb known for many years after the mid-17th century as the Bloody Fields, a frequent host for skirmishes amidst the Irish Confederate Wars. In terms of ultimate, Ranelagh existed for 10 years, with a well-documented and immediately successful program, and a few bloodied fields throughout their ongoing history too. Looking back to their inaugurating year in 2012, it's apparent the Dublin ultimate landscape has dramatically evolved. Setting the scene 4 years prior to their inception, and it was Broccoli and Johnny Chimpo that were the prominent open division clubs that routinely featured in and went on to win a majority of the All-Ireland Ultimate Championships, Irish Nationals. No matter how well either would do at home, they were unable to even qualify for Euros.
Team to Euros. There's the shot to the end zone,
and would more often than not get mopped up by the likes of Clapham, Chevron, and even Leeds at UK Nationals and bigger intercontinental tournaments.
But I mean, I guess Ranelagh kind of legitimizes things. They say, Johnny Chimpo, Broccoli.
No. Rebel legitimized things.
Like for Irish Ultimate.
To an extent, like Rebel. Well, it depends how you look at it. Pelt were the first Irish Open Club team to qualify for Euros. Rebel was first to do it at mixed. Rebel, I think, got a bronze in like mixed at Windmill or something, like 2010, maybe 2011. And that was like one of the first times you're like, oh shit. Because this is back when like Irish national teams would show up, get their asses kicked. Across all divisions, across all age groups, just show up, get our asses kicked.
Leading into the World Ultimate Club Championship in Prague 2010, and the tectonic plates were as shifted. The Dubliners tried to consolidate their talents and establish the more legitimate-sounding Dublin Ultimate. A team that did, in fact, assemble, played a domestic season, and went on the road to WUCC. They had a half-decent showing, too. But when they came home, there was no routine training, no structure, no buy-in, and above all, no established culture. And at the same time, Cork was rising, and Rebel Ultimate branded themselves, stepped up their training, and brought a polished roster that would rout Broccoli at the next All-Ireland Ultimate Championships. The old guard of the prominent Dublin Ultimate clubs knew something needed to be done. Mark Yearley and Brian McDevitt, Brit boy, plotted to establish something legitimate and sustainable.
After Rebel beat a Dublin team again,
I just don't like you no more.
Brian sent a message to about 5 or 6 of us who all were close friends, played on different teams, but had played for Ireland a bunch of times. And he said, effectively, let's not let this happen anymore. So we ran a 6-week block where we invited all the best open players to come and play for us. At the time, we had pitches in Gonzaga, which is where I taught for years. That's where I coached Ferdia, Smurf, all those boys, which I'll get to later on, no doubt. I was able to get us free pitches. Gonzaga is in Ranelagh. Out came this team. And the next February, we entered the Siege of Limerick. So that would have been 2012, February of 2012.
There were 9 or 10 influential voices that stood alongside, with noteworthy contributions coming from Dominic Smith, Niall Harborne, and Connor Hogan.
Not just enough one left-hand pickup by Connor Hogan.
An invite was extended to everyone in the Dublin Ultimate scene to attend a meeting where they would pitch a new club concept. They had the training grounds in Ranelagh at their disposal. They had an invigorated passion and a vision for something with foundations for success. At that meeting, they presented the vision, and those in attendance all had an opportunity for input while they hashed out exactly what kind of club they hoped to become. They wrote the manifesto, and the majority of experienced players in the area committed to the blueprint. The new incarnation of Dublin Ultimate had lined up all their pieces, even before giving themselves a name.
How are we supposed to compete with that?
But at the time, I'd been working there for a bunch of years, and we had free fields there. So Ireland trained there, Dublin Ultimate trained there, Paddy Murphy, even the women's team trained there for a while. So we called that team that we entered Siege of Limerick, we just called it Ranelagh, because we couldn't come up with a smart name. We also liked the idea of geographically tagging the club to where we were from.
With their first tournament approaching, the newly formed squad fashioned the moniker of their training suburb to represent themselves at the 2012 Siege of Limerick. They went well, and the name Ranelagh stuck to the new Dublin team. With a built-up head of steam, Ranelagh went on to win their first 3 All-Ireland championships consecutively. One of them actually won by their seconds team, but Ranelagh all the same. The new club had taken the striding rights from Rebel.
Everyone to a man knows Mozart's name.
I don't, so there goes that theory.
And were routinely holding off Jabba the Hutt in their inaugurating years. After their first 3 or 4 years, Ranelagh went through a changing of the guard. Many of the founding fathers had moved on, and the leadership was ushering in their second generation. And while Ranelagh rebuilt, Pelt fired up. A Limerick team with university recruiting strengths and rivaling ladsmanship. They were keen to compete. They started swinging with Ranelagh blow for blow. In fact, in 2016, Pelt were the stronger club, and Jabba the Hutt hijacked a national championship on the back of some show-stealing play from Ian French and company. A man who would go on to have great influence with Ranelagh.
That's happened in Ireland a lot.
Ranelagh's third generation of recruits and leadership have now settled in, and the strength and depth of their club has become evident. The bigger city recruiting, the stick-to-itness of the original manifesto, the investment in dedicated non-player coaching, and their consistent immersion in top-level tournaments has vastly improved their internal team structures. Ranelagh have become the clear-cut force within Ireland. It wasn't until 2019 that Ranelagh first qualified for the EUCF, back in Caorle, Italy. The tournament when Clapham were historically dethroned for the first time in a very long while.
Simonazzi, that one's in for goal! Venturoli, the Italians have done it! Davide Mori is going to have a hernia! Look at him go! Oh my goodness! It's happened, Ravi!
In 2021, Ranelagh turned some heads on the European scene, making it all the way to a semi-final appearance. They missed out on bronze after losing to Gentle. This was by far the best result they had ever had. Perennial champs Clapham and defending champs at that time, Bologna, outclassed all of the challengers in Bruges.
Bruges might impress me, but I didn't, so it doesn't.
They rematched for the 5th consecutive final, while all others filled the stands to spectate the affair. As it went, Clapham won their title back, and Ranelagh were ecstatic to have made it to the semis. But a 4th place finish is always tough to swallow after a good tournament, as the campaign ends with consecutive losses. At the dawn of the 2022 season, hopes were justifiably higher than ever for Ranelagh going into a World Clubs year. The de facto season opener for teams that finished strong the prior season was the Bologna Invite.
The Elite Invite. Elite Invite.
8 of the strongest teams in 3 divisions arrived in Bologna in mid-April. Ranelagh's first streamed match was a clash against Clapham, and it seemed like Ranelagh were a team destined for glory under the ulti.TV lenses. They stormed out of the gates and blew the hinges off with a 9-3 lead. Clapham couldn't put a foot right, and Ranelagh were taking advantage of them every step of the way.
They don't know what to do, but holy, they're on the ropes right now.
It was not to be. Ranelagh fell apart in humiliating fashion. Basically watched 12 in a row went against them to concede the match as Clapham flexed their routine second half muscles, and the game and the tournament were flushed for Ranelagh.
On the hammer, it's there into Martin. He's got Amala there. There's company. Amala's the first there, but it's the trail. Long jumps, but not quite in. That's the game, ladies and gentlemen. Clapham pull off the unthinkable comeback. Down 9-3 in the second half.
It may well have changed the course of their season if they found the medal to win that one out. If they deprived themselves of the lessons that came with that heart-wrenching loss. Coach Ian French insists that they were working on some systems, and the results were never important. It was about the process. An ironclad commitment to the process in the moment to not scrap his plan in order to avoid that catastrophe. Because from an outsider's perspective, it was exactly that. The tournament was catastrophic for Ranelagh because of that game.
Same thing. Yeah, it was great. Great experience overall. Great for the first time this season and probably for a few tournaments to go to play in good weather. We don't get that much in Ireland.
Ranelagh limped back to Dublin and went back to the drawing board. Tom's tourney was a no-show for Ranelagh. And Windmill, they were hardly on the radar. They lost dramatically to unsuspecting opposition, scrapping out a few wins and, well, enjoying the Windmill party. They finished 17th, and for a club that finished 4th in Europe the year prior, this was looking like a full-fledged implosion. In fact, Ranelagh were blooding in a new crop of troops at Windmill, and their roster had only a handful of their WUCC Cincinnati selections. Internally, they were once again sticking to their systems and getting in their reps. But from an outsider's perspective, Ranelagh were wasting away their apparent talent. Were they simply a flash in the pan? One-trick ponies from the prior season? Many were beginning to believe as much. Clapham went on to win the Windmill tournament over the Mooncatchers, but they were only ever really tested in the semi-final.
Modiano putting it up into space. Huge layup to Connor McHale, and it's just too far out of reach. Into White, and White's going to bomb it deep for Jafar. Two Clapham Bears underneath, and
Jafar catches it!
Universe point.
The London Invite was a new tournament on the calendar in 2022. This time the best 8 teams in 2 divisions, Open and Women's, were invited to duke it out. Hosted by Steel-Cut Clapham and dubbed as the final warm-up before Worlds. Ranelagh managed a big win over silver medalists and former defending champs La Fota Bologna, which was a big scalp to take, and they avenged their bronze medal loss from the prior season and beat Gentle too. But otherwise, with losses against Bad Skid, Alba, and of course Clapham, the WCC warm-up didn't breed much confidence. They would need the season to magically right itself in Cincinnati.
Weather today in the greater Cincinnati area.
There was some good news on the horizon. Ranelagh were picking up a handful of bright, shiny Americans, Double Wide and Johnny Bravo players that Sam Murphy and Ferdia Rogers connected with during their AUDL seasons. An impressive list of names to add to what was a good-looking roster last year.
I think we're looking great, yeah. Probably the best we've ever looked.
Elliot Moore and Jacob Raddick from Double Wide, and Chance Cochran and Will Laurie from Bravo. Would this season finally come good? Ranelagh were begging themselves to peak at the right moment.
I played Bravo I played in 2016 and 2017, and then played Rhino in 2018. This will actually be my first World Club Championship, so super excited about that. I played U24 for USA in Perth in 2018, and just international tournaments are definitely my favorite kind of competition. You just get to see so many different styles, meet so many different people. Like, gives you an appreciation for how big the sport's gotten and just how high the level is in other countries.
But there was also some trouble on the horizon. Captain Stephen Jones sustained an injury at the London Invite that would relegate him to the sideline and make him a non-playing coach. Which was ironically good news, because their head coach, Ian French, became unable to attend, falling ill and being advised by his doctors not to travel overseas in the 11th hour before the main event. So Ranelagh got to Cincinnati coachless. Well, not exactly. Just not with the head coach that started and evidently finished the season with them. So they inherited Captain Stephen Jones due to his injury. They also had the services of another player unable to compete, Sam Micklem. And they get a late addition from one of Ireland's most decorated players, Sarah Melvin.
Ian French came along and kind of dropped the idea once or twice. And then eventually I just couldn't let go of the idea, and I thought it might be a nice challenge for myself.
Like, Sarah's a teacher and she's a fantastic coach, and she really knows how to communicate concepts and really work with people on an individual level.
By the start of the season, the seed had sprouted and she ran periodic training sessions with the team. But she hadn't been their coach at a tournament before WCC. When Ian had become unavailable, Sarah stepped up to fill in for her coaching mentor and took an active role in the Ranelagh coaching staff for WCC as her first tournament with the lads. Having decided that her playing options were to be put on pause at the start of the season, she had an opportunity to impart the winning culture she honed amidst the Eurostars tour and the EUC championship she won. Melvin came in with a glimmer of hope.
I didn't feel like I had to prove myself as a woman in that environment. I was just accepted immediately as a coach, which was such a nice experience for me.
We love having her with us too. Established player and leader in the community, come with us.
But
ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
Then came the scheduling and the WCC pool announcement. Ranelagh found themselves surrounded by daunting opponents in one of the pools of death, with Melbourne Ellipsis, Toronto Goat, and the familiar Lunchyard Bullies Clapham in their group. Ranelagh escaped with one sole victory against the group's whipping post, CUSB Padova. Talisman Ferdia Rogers jammed his wrist early in pool play and had to be used in a reduced capacity throughout the rest of the tournament. Between the All-American pickups and the acquisition of Coach Melvin, counterbalanced with the injuries, the head coach left behind, and the pool of death, Ranelagh found themselves unimpressed with what they accomplished. They finished the tournament in 22nd place, worse than their 21st placing at the last iteration of WCC 4 years ago. They were the 10th best European finisher. By all standards, the results were abysmal.
Yeah, it felt like a much tougher group. We had an easy game in 2018 against some crap team called Isno or something.
The season would be chalked up as a disappointment. A World Club Championship season can really with a domestic or intercontinental campaign thereafter. The WCC hangover was real, after success or failure and everything in between.
But yeah, Sarah and Leo came back from Worlds very confident in what they were doing, very knowledgeable, having built the trust with the squad, having built a much deeper relationship with all the players. So it was just easy to let them keep doing it and then just add in what I needed to at Euros.
Many teams lost their international pickups. Many teams took training breaks for a month, even more. EUCF seemed so far away at the conclusion of WCC. And for some teams, it was looking more like a reunion than a tournament worth peaking for, despite its elite nature. Ranelagh took a lot more from their disappointing showings, and never took their foot off the gas. Their season was not built around WCC, despite their high hopes. Their intention was to peak before they break for the official offseason, the final championship of the season. They had earmarked EUCF from the start of the season, and then circled it again on the calendar when they had nothing left to lose.
Really impressive performance by the Scots.
Ranelagh had their head coach back, along with a coaching staff who had cut their teeth independently while he was absent. They came into EUCF hot, becoming an immediate talking point with a win over Bologna on day one, the first round. Davide was predictably furious.
When they won. To win, you have to complete the game, and they won.
Sheet lightning coming down, and then forks. Loud claps of thunder. Deafening.
As it was a weather-shortened game, and his team would lose the advantage of winning the pool because of this first-round loss. His grumblings of winning on a coin flip were unfounded, but he needed to vent, as he became well aware that when Lafotta gave up 3 in a row to concede the half, and then the game to Ranelagh, they would have to go through Clapham just to get to the final now.
Some people speak about losing some game purposely, but we said why? So we can win against everything, lose against a few teams, and then we go ahead.
I found myself somewhere between insulted and so enamored with his honesty and his sense of presence, you know? Gorgeous man.
With Bologna and Clapham on the same side of the bracket after one round to play, the few remaining powerhouses were all but throwing games to avoid them collectively, and to take the easy route through Ranelagh on the other side of the bracket.
Frisky Van Healy finds Raf Yonkers, screams for pressure. So Martin Hall on the sideline at least wants this.
Again, Spappin's over on that sideline, but this is a hammer out the side from Yonkers. Look, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that.
Well, that's Ethan Brell's going to go and pick it.
Ranelagh didn't seem to give a shit. They played through the opening rounds to perfection, resting players against MUC when they had already won the pool, and the result would not change anything. They lost that game, but were still somehow getting stronger and more confident, using their entire team to play the tournament as they progressed. This set up a quarterfinal against Mooncatchers, and it was an absolute cracker. Mooncatchers had just come off a 4th place finish at WUCC. And they've also just manipulated the schedule intentionally to go through Ranelagh. But Moon couldn't hold them off. It was a tight game throughout, and Ferdy Rogers' shoulder-high layout D would be a massive turning point in the game to give advantage to the Irish. By the end, the Mooncatchers' hucking game was getting continually broken up by Irish defenders, and a dropped huck from Orlovsky's to Yonkers in the dying minutes to tie the game sealed their fate. Ranelagh had now knocked off Bologna and the Mooncatchers, but it was the other side of the bracket that was said to be where the eventual champion would emerge from.
Oh, seems like there's some competition.
The win gave Ranelagh an easy semi against Heidi's, who had the tournament of their lives. Heidi's knocked out hot favourites and countrymen Wall City, who had won the German national championships.
So they're still holding on to it for a bit too long. No, they get the score in the end.
And that's 3 Wall City defenders there. And they punched in the front corner anyway. Just complete disregard for the defense.
But Heidi's had nothing left in the semi, and Ranelagh smoked them, and they found themselves into the European Ultimate Club Final, the Champions League of European Ultimate.
They booked their place in the final for the first time. They break their streak of losing games on stream, and now they're ready to go face Clapham.
At this stage, avoiding the stream for any of their elimination games was fine by Ranelagh. Why? Because they didn't want to get scouted by the opposition? No. But because they had lost 10 in a row on ulti.TV streams going back to Madrid in 2021. Then, the season opener in Bologna when they shit the bed against Clapham, all the way up to their only loss of the EUCF 2022 tournament against MUC. 10 streams, 10 losses, and they were happy to hold off this curse till they got as deep as possible into the tournament, until the stream was an inevitability.
I think we were counting, like it was a running joke, really.
0-10. I see. This is it's hard to explain the Pelt thing because I would take great pride in being able to say, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, they're 0-10 on stream. I've been commentating most of those games.
Yeah.
So people on the outside are like, oh yeah, because Pelt, Ranelagh, I'm trying to curse them, but in reality, like I was feeling for them, man. It was heartbreaking to be in the booth with Liam Grant and watching them kind of like stumble out of the blocks against Goat, and the whole time you're up there, you're just like, just collect yourselves.
As an ulti.TV team patron, Ranelagh got priority streamed with heavy frequency over the season. But in tragic fashion, they could not muster a single win under the illustrious ulti.TV cameras. It was a talking point in the comments, and on the sidelines ahead of their game. A chant eventually broke out in the final about it, but it may well have set them up to win at the right time. And well, Ranelagh were in the final, of course being streamed, and between having to face Clapham, whom edged out Bologna in a classic semi-final,
Oh my goodness!
and their dismal on-stream record, not a soul was giving Ranelagh a chance to win.
Now the hammer for goal, over the head, into the hands.
Clapham, the perennial European juggernaut, had won 7 of the last 8 Euro titles and 21 of the last 21 UK titles. Yes, consecutive. It's a division where Ranelagh had to regularly settle for qualifying 2nd or 3rd, or not at all. If you're anything like me by now, you're thinking, oh, I could smash a double scoop pistachio vanilla gelato right now. You may also be thinking, whoa, Ranelagh, this stuff's dope. I gotta get myself a replica jersey. Well, get onto the website, Be Ultimate. Be outfitted so many teams last year that did so well and are so recognizable, you could be going to training in a new jersey every week. Maybe it's not replica jerseys you're after. Maybe it's becoming a Be outfitted team yourself. Get your team outfitted and Be Ultimate. Become a champion. As it would go, the combatants arrived early Sunday morning at the Keorle Airfield Showcase pitch. Clapham had gone undefeated through the tournament, much the same as they did 3 years prior at the same venue. They did lose 1 game in that prior championship, and it happened to be on that very same showcase pitch. in the championship game. But surely lightning wouldn't strike twice against them. Or would this prove another eerie year? It just so happened to be the very same year that Japan's Buzz Bullets lost their national title for the first time since 1998 to Nomadic Tribe. So maybe, just maybe, the stars could also align for Ranelagh. But this was not the chat amongst those in the know. It was foretold to be another Clapham formality to come. The real final was the semi between Bologna La Fota and Clapham the day before. So Clapham had already won. The game kicked off and a few early breaks went against Ranelagh, while facing the big game masters Clapham. With all their previously mentioned credentials, things were quickly looking bleak. Was it all over for Ranelagh that quickly?
I know, right? Like, what is going on? She's got such a leg up on us.
Those few early breaks turned the scoreboard to a 4-1 lead for Clapham, who at that stage seemed happy to preserve their lead and trade out. The sidelines were lulled into personal chats as the game slowly approached the half. But at 6-3, Ranelagh quietly made a charge for the hold, and then a break when Rogers cashed in a rare Clapham turn to Kyo. It was suddenly a 1-point lead.
Suddenly Ranelagh start this run, and I'm trying to watch games. We've got kids in the house, and I'm trying to watch, sneak half an hour here. And so the morning of the final, I'm woken at like 7 a.m. So I think the final was 8 a.m. our time by these kids running around the house, and we got to feed them and wash them and all that stuff. And then I get the final on, and we get to halftime, and Hazel's like, right, we got to take them out. We're going out. So I have to leave. Like, there's no... the Ranelagh, the alumni group is going crazy. The club group's going crazy. Everyone's watching point by point. Like, the whole thing's lit up. It's amazing. Like, there's people from, like, their mid-40s down to their 20s texting in the same groups, kind of go, all this stuff. And the whole community's, like, loving it. And I have to bring these three kids for a walk, around the local fields, and we're picking blueberries and shit, and I'm just like.
A pair of reciprocating holds later, after a ridiculous Conrad Wilson toe-in layout, and McNulty stepped into the lane for an intercept early in the next Clapham possession.
The interception. He's just waiting for somebody to get free for him.
He dumped it to McCrory, who immediately end-zone hucked it to Bogan Carey. And ever so quickly, this 4-1 lead of Clapham's had evaporated.
Here we are at Galaxy Point, Lorcan. Ranelagh, you got to give it to them.
It had evaporated into a Galaxy Point showdown.
We are here with Stefan.
I am here.
Pazzo.
Please tell us about the creation of Galaxy Point.
2013 or 14, but Nationals. It was a game between Melbourne Heads of State and Melbourne Chili's. Super rivalry between the production crew. Somebody's like, well, what's smaller than a universe? And I spat out Galaxy, and then Galaxy Point was born.
We're in the middle in rural Galway. I can't get the stream working. Someone's going to have to give me play-by-play, guys. I don't have the internet on the phone. So Keith Myrna, Fiona's brother and an ex-Ranelagh player, he's like, I got you. And he literally texts me everything that happens over the course of the next, let's say, 10 points.
Clapham maintained the advantage based on serve. They would start the second half on offense in any case. But momentum was a prized possession of the Dubliners and their Johnny Bravo break rocket. It was blasting off, winning the crowd, and keeping them relaxed and in the moment. You may remember the Johnny Bravo break rockets from such tournaments as USAU Nationals. Yeah, there's a connection. A strong end to their season after relative disappointment in the lead-up. White shirts with black pinstripes, crossed over teammates at WCC. The break rocket? Yeah. Back to our story. Galaxy Point. Clapham steadied, received the disc, and held cleanly. They anticlimactically took half. They were all but back to counting chickens, knowing they would start the second half with their offense on the pitch. And well, chicken counting looked like it was right back on the table. It was a nice surge to the end of the half by Ranelagh, but Clapham opened up with a very comfortable hold, and they were back up a deuce, 9-7. Then
Micklem unfortunately misreads one. There's Mikhail shooting to the...
they broke again to Funk to make it 10-7. Dang, Ranelagh. 3 on the bounce since Galaxy. And as all of Europe knows, the Clapham effect of closing out games in the second half was starting to look like the inevitable outcome. There was no way Ranelagh could mount and summit a second half comeback. It just wasn't happening. Well, let's just keep going and see what happens. Ranelagh held, and at 10-8, Clapham threw lazy for goal and Ranelagh gobbled it up. A few quick throws to McCreary, and he rocketed another bomb to Keenan, and the Bravo rocket launched, and the momentum they had given away was back in their sights. Back to a 1-point game.
Mikhail across to Mead. That one came out just a little bit fluttery. Maybe rushing themselves. Oh, the drop knee, the amazing grab!
Clapham held, with an impressive Hillman layout for goal. Not to be outdone, Ranelagh held their next possession as Sam Murphy provided one of the greatest toe drag layouts the back corner of any end zone has ever had the pleasure of being dragged thereupon. VAR analysis.
The catch and the foot is in.
The foot is in, the thigh might be on the line.
I think from the angle that ulti.TV put up the other day, where the disc is on the far side, it does look like my foot is down when I catch it. I think if I had reasonably sized thighs, I definitely would have been out. But the chicken legs have definitely done us a solid there.
They want one more replay before deciding this
yeah,
one.
I can't comment on that. I want that to be in too much. So we're going to go instead to Sean Culfer, European Editor-in-Chief for Ulti-World.
That looks into me.
End goal, 11-10 to Clapham. Momentum unstable, waiting to be taken a hold of in these crucial moments to come. Ranellagh's defense tightened, but patience prevailed, and Clapham held again. Ranellagh's offense struck deep and easy to hold. Again within 1, and the finish line irking ever closer. At 12-11, Abrams floated a crossfield gainer too high. The Ranelagh D-line took over and sent it to the end zone at a feverish pace, with Sam Murphy line driving it to Keenan for the score. Horns were locked. Ranelagh had achieved equal score after squandering their last achievement of it way back at Galaxy Point. They were still playing from behind, but it was 12-12. The sidelines were stunned. It seemed so backwards. Clapham underperforming in the second half of a big game, and Ranelagh making them pay? What in tarnations were we witnessing? The very next point, Connor McHale felt the pressure of the moment and floated an overthrow. Ranelagh took possession, and Keenan put up an ugly floater that Deavy somehow managed to collect off a tip. And Ranelagh took their first lead of the game at
13-12 to Ranelagh.
Briggs is actually in no position here to get the D in the end because of an empathy jump. We can see when players want their teammate to jump, they all jump at the same time. You can see all the Clapham players here put in a little hop.
Wait, the audience likes that?
the first lead they had on Clapham in many months, going all the way back to Bologna. The 9-3 lead they had, a lead they proved they could not well hold on to. The Clapham stacked line returned to the pitch, and after another series of completions, McHale watched the disc get away from him on an underthrown centering pass to Gordon. Ranelagh took their time with the disc this time, and eventuated to giving it back on a stall-out. But Clapham were shaken and stirred, and after working it up the field, Mead gave a free one back to the Irish after turfing it on what should have been a shot for goal.
That's Louis Stewart. He shoots for the end zone. He's trying to find DV. There's not going to be enough.
Yet another turn from Ranelagh as they shot too far for goal and sailed it past the end zone sideline. Nerves were winning this point. Some veteran savvy was necessary. Finally, the talisman, Justin Ford, shot a near full-field rocket to Yo, and Clapham got away with a desperation 4-turnover hold to make it level Peggins at 13. The Irish received the next pull and conservatively reset for a few throws in their end zone to start the possession, before Sam Murphy toe-dragged another line to get them into the red zone.
Immediately called in. Sam Murphy might be having the game of his life right now. He's been incredibly impressive tournament by him. He's had an amazing season.
I think if he had to go into the second half, we were definitely down. Yeah.
Cool. The question is whether it's on the way.
Okay. Oh, I was just going to say, literally.
He's had an amazing season. A leader in every sense of the word.
Lots of sideline hands go up as we're going to look at the replay here.
Feely finished the job and fed Rogers for the goal, and they moved within one of the most improbable championship anyone had expected to see. Clapham looked cooked, but it was Clapham. And it was Clapham who turned over the ensuing possession immediately. And Ranelagh were within 15 meters from a championship with disc in hand. But they gave it right back, bouncing one off the head of Josh Briggs. Clapham regained possession and held their collective mettle. And just a few throws later, Yo launched to an unexpectedly deep-streaking Abrams. He got the goal, and they took it to Universe Point. Multiverse Point. That's right, double game point for a tournament championship. For the European Ultimate Club Championship, to be precise.
It gets to like 14s, and I'm like, okay, no, I can't. Kids, you gotta, like, Hazel, this is like, this isn't.
Give me some space.
So we just come around this corner, we see a field with donkeys in it, and the kids climb up and they're just staring at them. And I have 14-14, the phone starts working.
And so the Titans stepped onto the pitch. Ranelagh set to receive. Clapham, who had been here time and time again. Momentum was locked. Advantages negated. Nerves would be taking over. And let me tell you, this point did not disappoint. Right from the pull, offside called. It was reviewed on the sideline by ulti.TV's instant replay monitors, which effectively settled a lot of disputes in European Ultimate. It was succumbed to by Clapham, and Ranelagh would start this nerve-wracking point at the brick mark. 6 reset throws before an eventual gainer, and Ranelagh made the grave error of throwing in the direction of the time-tested clutch hero Justin Ford, who had launched his body towards the disc to get the block with an attempted layout deep. But McNamara laid out simultaneously, even higher, equally impressive timing. Tumbling to the ground practically as one, the disc was in the hand of Jack McNamara. Conversation ensued. The call was contested. It looked clean. I can understand making a call in a big moment, when you're desperate for a D. Sure, there was grazing contact, but I'm sure after time to digest and thoroughly review, Justin would have to admit he got this one wrong. Right, Justin? Ranelagh retained possession, though the spectacular grab was nullified, but the team was regenerated and inspired from the effort. Ranelagh established some fluid movement despite a few more Clapham calls, and upon another stoppage, on a vintage Rogers push-off, Ranelagh found themselves in the red zone, with the disc in Sam Murphy's hands. Murphy led Corcoran another 5 meters with a centering high-release flick. Corcoran collected, wildly faked a hammer, and then immediately let loose another leading backhand for Rogers. It was again Justin Ford looking to save the day. Rogers would not be outdone on this day.
He clears out. He floats one up for Corcoran, just showing off about every facet of his game. There's the lefty leading pass. There's Rogers chasing it down! And in what has to be considered a metaphor, Rogers plows over Justin Ford to get the winning score. 15-14. The
That's good.
Lads have done it.
History in the making.
It's a game. Congratulations, Ranelagh. You made history. Congratulations.
Ranelagh had done the unthinkable. The season of disappointment had been rectified.
And I watched the final point on my phone, and I burst into tears. Like this.
No way.
I literally burst into tears, and the kids are looking at me. What's going on? Like, they won! Like in floods of tears, and Hazel's like, what? Like, Ranelagh won!
Wow. Players and coaches were collapsing all over the pitch and bursting into tears while blubbering on about their ubiquitous love for one another.
It's fantastic to see someone go up against Clapham and take home the win.
While Clapham were heads in hands, trying to figure out how the championship had just evaded them.
Harder. Ranelagh taking home their first European title. I don't know how you feel anything other than pride. If you're a fan of Ultimate, I also feel the adrenaline slowly leaving my system, so I'll probably start shaking in a moment.
So I think everybody wants to know, what did that feel like? I think we'll start off with Rogers.
I don't really have words, just an overwhelm of emotions. I mean, you could see it at the end, us screaming, going crazy, falling to the floor, tears streaming out of everyone's face. It's just such a culmination of hard work over the last few years, and his team is just incredible, absolutely incredible.
I'm going out on a limb and saying that's the best final that's ever been viewed at the EUCF. If I got this wrong, let us know in the comments. Has there ever been a better EUCF final, open, mixed, women's, than that one? Like in Japan, the longtime champs were dethroned. Like in the US, with Johnny Bravo, the seasonal disappointments came good and shocked the world. Here in Europe, Ranelagh wrote their most impressive chapter to their ongoing history.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
We've got Ian French, fresh off the victory, head coach of Ranelagh. Tell us about your feelings right now. How are you feeling? What's going through your head?
A little stunned. I knew the team had it in it. That's why I came to coach the team. I knew the talent that was there. I saw them in their Euros run in 2019, how well they played, the energy, the intensity they could play with. Thought everything went right for us and we worked really hard. We could one day topple Europe. I was hoping to do last year. Fell a little bit short last year. Haven't had the greatest season this year, so we weren't sure how this tournament would go. We really focused back in on ourselves and how good we are and what we can do. And it's really paid dividends. The squad, it's been a tidal wave of energy for the last 2 days. It's incredible. Ever since the muck game, despite a wobbly start, that we could dig in and repeat that performance in Bologna.
Well, wow, that was a heck of a show.
It's been incredibly impressive. It's been breathtaking, and I can't wait to see it all again next year.
I'm going to tell you that ulti.TV's Patreon program was the best way you could spend $3 a month. You'd be like, yeah, legit. Same goes when I tell you that Be Ultimate performance-based apparel is built to give you the edge on the field. Moisture-wicking fabric, flat lock seams, these uniforms are built like nothing you've ever played in before. Take your game to the next level and be
better than ever.
Better than ever. We encourage you, our viewers, to continue to be a part of our ongoing history, the ongoing history of Ultimate, and the stories that unfold from that live Ultimate. Watch ulti.TV streams, click the buttons, hit the bells, watch live, watch the finals most certainly. Anything can happen. You don't want to miss it. It always happens live first. So stay tuned and stay locked on with ulti.TV. And it may just be your team we're making the next ongoing history of Ultimate story.